Hey everybody, welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. Good evening, Hannah. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, and how are you?
Doing good. Felt like we just recorded the other night, which I guess we kind of did, but it's been a few days.
Yes.
We're fresh off the heels of Star Wars Celebration, so still consuming that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a new episode of The Mandalorian just dropped this week, the second last episode of the season. And then for those of you that listened or watched our last episode, we definitely wanted to talk about the timeline eras that were introduced at Celebration, because I think that's a much bigger conversation than what we had just kind of going through all the news.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we'll focus on this episode. First and foremost, again, thank you to our patrons. As always, thank you for contributing. And if you want to support the show, we are at Inside the Force on Patreon. Check out the tiers there. And again, always appreciate the love and support that we get.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, The Mandalorian. We're going to talk about that first.
All right.
Now, this episode of The Mandalorian actually debuted at Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping you weren't spoiled at all, were you?
Not at all.
Yeah, me neither. So thankfully, people did. I feel like people held off, but obviously not that many people saw it, because if you're at Celebration, you're only talking to, maybe 1,000 people, if that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did hear and kind of see was that this was arguably the best episode of The Mandalorian that's come out. So I did see that, and so I did feel a little bit of a high expectation going into this thing. But I want to hear what you had to say first. So, what was your overall impression of this episode?
Do I think it's the best episode ever of The Mandalorian? No.
Okay.
Do I think it's a contender for one of the best so far that we've seen this season? Yes.
Okay.
I felt like we were back in the Mandalorian groove. This episode reminded me a lot of the first season of Mandalore. Just with the pacing, with the story, it didn't feel jagged or jarring.
Yeah.
Everything just kind of flowed and it made sense. And then you had that nice twist at the end. Holy crap.
Yeah.
All right. Things are going down. Here we go.
Yes.
I feel like the season up until this point, I guess scattered is the best way I would describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not as scattered as Bad Batch, but this episode I feel like got us back on track as to what this season is about.
Right. Okay.
So that's my takeaway from it. What was your reaction?
Well, I agree with you. I don't think it at all compares to. I could probably think of 2 or 3 episodes that I would rank higher than this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's all subjective, but because this episode was really good.
Yes.
It gave us a lot of what we wanted to see, what we were waiting for, is a bunch of Mandalorians. But I mean, right off the top of my head, I'm like, it ain't better than the Luke episode at the end of season 2. Like, I mean, it's not even close. But I could see where people, liked it and really, really gravitated towards it. Especially if you're just a massive Mandalorian fan. I mean, you do love this episode. It was one of the longest episodes we've ever gotten. I think it actually could be the longest. I think it was either 1 or 2 because it was 50 minutes or so, a little over 50 minutes. So we got a long episode. But, and watching it again, I watched it again last night, and, it definitely has a long explanation throughout the first part of this. Like, we really don't get much action until really like 3/4 of the way through the show. There's a lot of just getting the Mandalorians together, and then you have that little one-on-one fight that Paz has with what's his name? I can't remember his name. But there's a lot of like uncertainty, right? Because they're exploring the surface, and we saw Moff Gideon in the beginning, so it's like he's gonna come up some point, right? I mean, it's just inevitable. So, but it was really neat to see the survivors, the Mandalorians that were on Mandalorian and all that. So, yes, I get it. There was a lot of just a lot of catch up on the dialogue side of things. And then we obviously get into the reveal, like you said, and the action and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, it was good. I liked it. Looking forward to the next one, obviously the last one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely not the greatest episode.
No, definitely.
So a couple things then, Hannah, because a couple things stand out that, again, I haven't really heard too much people talking about it, but they liked the episode a lot. They obviously liked probably these aspects of it. But one was, now we've got IG-12. What do you think about the whole IG-12 and the Grogu and stuff?
I thought that was cute. I thought that was very cute. It shows the childish side of Grogu. I think it also gave Grogu a voice. Mm-hmm. And it also gets him out of the pod. It can make him a little more useful in getting around.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very cute and adorable. Yeah, that was my take on it. That was my take on it. And also it helps him rise up to other people's eye lines instead of everyone looking down at Grogu. So now Grogu can be seen as an equal. True. Yes. Versus a child.
Yes.
What did you think? Did you find it annoying? I feel like some people found it annoying.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt it. I don't think I felt it annoying. I felt it. I mean, it was very clever, but part of me, I don't know. Yeah, I guess when we first, I think it was the premiere, right, where he goes and says, "I need IG-11 back," and that whole thing kind of falls through, and then we kind of walk away from it. I mean, I guess it makes sense that it's taken this much time till he comes back, I guess, to say, but he hasn't been back since. I guess he hasn't been back since, right?
No. I mean,
well, they came back he came back. Yeah. So he came back to free, when he freed him and he gave him the land. So I'm like, you didn't have it ready by then, I guess. I don't know. I guess not. This pretty convenient time. But I mean, I don't know. It does solve a lot of issues that you have with the pod. Because obviously, yes, he's very contained and not as flexible. So I get that. I think it's clever. I don't feel anywhere really good or bad about it, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it really depends on how they use it going forward. Mm-hmm. Is he start really truly like being able to possibly even defend himself and fight with it and whatever, because Mandalorians, like you said, have to learn how to take care of themselves, right? So we'll see if that takes place. But
That's what I'm hoping for, is that we see it in action versus it just as a vehicle of transportation.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And maybe you can get some actual dialogue going.
Exactly. You have
not just yes, no.
yes, no, yes, no.
That's funny.
I love
that. Actually was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was. No, what? He doesn't want to get out of it. Yes. No, you're getting out of it. No.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So the fact that Grogu now has a voice.
Right.
That's so kind.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. Now, one thing I wanted to point out too was the Imperial officers that were around.
Yes.
Very interesting because they're not necessarily listed in the credits, like only the two that were mentioned, which was oh gosh, I had his name and I just kind of lost it. But one of them was a major name, which is Brendel Hux.
Yeah, that was whoa.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Brendel Hux is the father of Hermitage Hux, who is General Hux in the sequel trilogy.
The Weasley boy.
The Weasley boy, correct. So Pelion is the other officer that was named. Pelion and then Hux. And then the other ones were just listed as warlords. So there weren't anybody really significant that we know about. But Hux, now his story, a lot of his stories in the book Phasma as well. So, again, for those of you who don't know, Brendel was basically in charge of all the new stormtroopers, the new legion of stormtroopers that were created for the First Order.
Yeah, he was a crucial part in the creation of the First Order.
Huge. I mean, the part. Yeah. Because he was, instead of clones, he adopted the whole steal them from birth, kind of like Jedi in a sense, and just brainwash them into becoming stormtroopers. And obviously we see that with Finn, and obviously he's the one that kind of breaks off, and then we find out later that a lot of them did, but a lot of them, that's all they know. They don't have a name. They just have a number, right? FN2187. But what's interesting about this time period, because I started thinking about time periods, this is obviously before Phasma. Mm-hmm. And, we're about 5 to 7 years removed from Return of the Jedi. I think more on the 7 to 8. And we both have read the Aftermath series, right? And I'm not sure if you know where I'm going with this, but what happens in the Aftermath series is, as the Battle of Jakku is wrapping up, which is about a year after Return of the Jedi, the remaining remnants of the Empire leave for the unknown regions, led primarily by Admiral Sloane, which I guess would have been a great opportunity to have her in this Shadow Council. But then I started thinking, well, does this mean do these people know that there's actually Imperials in the Shadow or in the unknown regions? Like my questions are starting to arise about, there are, now that seems like there's just factions of Empire, just like there were factions of rebellion, during the age of the Empire. Now we're in the New Republic, and it seems like there's now all these factions of Empire.
Yeah.
And these guys here, these warlords here, are trying to unify under the Shadow Collective. I'm curious if they even know about the unknown region, but somehow Brendel Hux has to, because he ends up, building the First Order out there. So I don't know. I'm just trying to. I don't know if you had any kind of thoughts like that and things like that running through your head when you saw that, because that kind of confused me a little bit.
No, I mean, but now that you mention it, my mind just immediately jumps to the only connecting link between the inner and outer rim is Thrawn.
Yeah.
So it could be that Brendel Hux like discovers, oh, this is the perfect place to do it through Thrawn. And who knows? Sloane might have met up with Thrawn in the Outer Rim, and it could be that's why they went out there to build more of an alliance with the Chiss. Because Thrawn is mentioned in that council.
Yes, they're all expecting him to return.
Right, they all are. So maybe that's the connection, is that they realize, oh, that's the best place to build the First Order, is the Outer Rim. And Thrawn tells them that, and so they do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing I can think of as the connecting link to kind of fill in that gap.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess. I mean, that was, Thrawn, like you said, Thrawn is is what's going to ultimately bring them all together, obviously, and there's going to be a big battle, it seems like, that's going to happen between Mandalorians and probably the New Republic and Ahsoka and whoever, against Thrawn and the Empire. Which is crazy to think that this time period does happen. Like all this happens before we even get to the sequel trilogy, which is the First Order, which again I will get to in the timeline when we talked about eras. But Brendel, this whole Shadow. In fact, I believe the Shadow Council that they're talking about, I think it was actually, I think it was brought up in the Aftermath books. I think it was because Gallius Rax, I think, is the one who's the main villain in that series. I think is the one that either started it or was part of it as well.
Yeah, I think so.
So somehow, I believe this, somehow, maybe through Thrawn or not, somehow this group, some of them, mainly Hux, gets into the unknown regions or gets directed that way and creates this legion of stormtroopers. Anyway.
No, but good thought.
Yeah, so I figured it when Hux was there, I was kind of looking around thinking, okay, this is one of these Sloane, but it wasn't. So it would have been cool to see her and to get, because I believe she's still around.
Oh yeah,
right?
I think she is.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen her or read her demise yet.
I don't think so.
Which is kind of weird if she's not like around the time of the sequel trilogy.
Maybe we see her in Ahsoka.
That's possible. I mean, she could be standing right next to Thrawn.
Yeah.
And see, we know, that's the thing too, is Thrawn is probably has to die if he's not, all the way to the sequel. I mean, he wouldn't just leave unless he goes back to the Chiss world. I guess he could. I don't know. You read the Ascendancy books.
Yes.
So we won't. I haven't yet, so we won't. I don't know if that lends itself to know what he possibly could do later.
That trilogy takes place before Thrawn joins the Empire.
Right. Okay. So yeah. Okay.
And that's all I'll say.
Yes. Interesting.
My one side comment about this episode is I'm still thoroughly semi-annoyed that we have this great comedic moment in The Rise of Skywalker with Finn and Poe saying, "They fly now? They fly now. They've been flying this whole time."
They have been flying this whole time.
And I feel
That's
like
right.
Finn would have known that.
Yes. Yes.
So, anyway, that's also, I saw this floating around on social media. I don't know if it's true or not, but Beskar, right? That's what the armor was made out of.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said that Phasma's suit it reflects bullets, like blaster shots, if you watch The Last Jedi.
Really? It does?
They commented on it, and they said that means her suit is made of Beskar. I don't know if it's 100% true, but I thought that was an interesting take I heard somebody else say.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Not sure. Yeah, not sure if that's true or not. I mean,
no. But it
looks like kind of a chrome. I guess it would if depending on. I mean, we kind of know Phasma's story,
right?
So it's obviously wasn't mentioned in the book what her armor was specifically made of, but.
What I don't understand, though, is that if they have that resource of Beskar, why have they decided not to expand that to more? Like, I'm sure we're going to find out. Maybe they just didn't get a chance to mine as much as they wanted. But
you mean like Gideon?
Yeah, just them mining more to create more suits like that.
Yeah.
Like, what happens with that?
Yeah, I don't know. That was an interesting twist.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he made his is a Beskar helmet too, I guess.
Yeah, he's wearing, I think he what he was saying was he's wearing a Beskar suit.
Yes. Yeah. That is interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to mention was this episode is called The Spies. Did you catch that?
I did. And thank you for bringing it up because that did perplex me. I don't know.
Right. So obviously the beginning of the episode starts with a spy.
Right.
Elia Kane is making her report to Moff Gideon.
Mm-hmm.
But the question's been floating around social was what the spies refers to. Like, who else is a spy?
Right.
So I think what's universally kind of accepted is that it hasn't been revealed yet who the other spy is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kinds of theories get running around, and the biggest theory is that it's one of the Mandalorians.
Well, yeah, because they discovered Beskar in the ship that Moff Gideon escaped from.
Yeah, but that could have been one of his guys, one of his soldiers just helping.
Absolutely.
Save, right.
Well, like now that's revealed. It's revealed it could have just been one of them.
It could have been.
But before then, we had no idea.
True. But now you kind of think, okay, so what would a Mandalorian that is spying for Moff Gideon, what would they get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
What reasoning do they have? It's obviously not Paz Vizsla.
Well, yeah, R.I.P. I don't know. I mean, do you think Death Watch? Because they made a quick comment about Death Watch in this episode. Do you think Death Watch is like secretly still there?
So the leading candidate right now that I've seen on social is the armor.
I was about to say, is it her? Like, but why would it be her?
I don't know.
What does she have to gain?
I don't know. I mean, like you said though, if she is Death Watch still, Death Watch was such a rogue kind of, war-driven group. I'm not sure unless Gideon promised them. Maybe Gideon promised a Mandalore. Just them, just her and her, whoever she deemed, maybe she's not really liking the fact that Bo-Katan's kind of leading the charge.
it would make a lot of things make sense. For example, the sudden flip that she had with you saw the Minosaur.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, why is she gathering everyone together? Why is she pushing Bo-Katan to gather everyone together in one spot? Why is she the one who volunteered immediately to ferry back the sick? She's a really good candidate.
She is a very good candidate. But is that almost too obvious?
Right. Is that the the distraction we're supposed to look at while the real spy gets away? But then who would the real spy be?
I don't know. I don't know. There was the other two people that were with Bo-Katan, and like they were mentioning one of those, but they're so smaller characters right now. I don't think. I mean, the armor. I just have to be that.
Kind of almost, but
it wouldn't be someone like Grief, would it?
I mean, maybe that's why why she's the distraction. We're supposed to think it's her, but it's not.
I think it's possible. It could be possible that's why we don't have a name for the armor.
Yeah, maybe.
That the reveal of who it actually is under that helmet, could that be obvious then, like somehow?
Well, then who would it be? Like, who would be under there?
I don't know.
Could they killed the armor, tortured them, and replaced the armor with someone else?
That's possible. I mean, she's never taken her helmet off, apparently.
It would also explain the repeat conversation she had with Din.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
But she's been with Death Watch, and she's been on Concordia.
Yeah.
So she has a long history of being a Mandalorian. So yes, at some point she has been, if she's been with the Empire, loyal to the Empire, and now she's trying to still do that. But what is she trying to gain? I don't, and she's there trying to, she's there still making armor for everybody and weapons for everybody. And, it's like,
why?
What if she's doing something? She's playing the extreme long game for something. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense to me. I'm pretty sure they can make it make sense for me, but right now I can't figure out a way to figure that out.
The only way the long game makes sense is if Palpatine himself told her, because Palpatine is a fan of the long game.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only thing I can think of.
I'm trying to think of all the female characters that are out there. Like, who could she?
Sloane? Maybe she's Sloane?
I mean, is it? Oh man, I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll hopefully we might get that figured out. The spies. I mean, maybe they'll tell us who that spy is.
Mm-hmm. Maybe in the next episode we'll find out.
Maybe. I don't know. But overall, good episode.
Yes.
I mean, good episode. Season finale is next Wednesday.
Whew.
Yeah. So a lot to dissect and talk about next week as we come to a close here. So we will do that. Now, just looking real quick before we get into our main topic here, of course, our release schedule. And of course, added to this list are some release schedules that we learned from Celebration. If you didn't pick it up last week, actually, on the 4th, the High Republic Cataclysm came out. May 2nd, your next High Republic novel, Path of Vengeance. July 18th, you got that book Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade. September 5th is Certain Point of View for Return of the Jedi. And now we have some dates from books that were released, release dates that were revealed at Celebration. Crimson Climb, the Kira book that we had mentioned before, now has a release date of October 10th. And then you've got the High Republic, The Eye of Darkness, which kicks off Phase 3, Trials of the Jedi. That comes out November 14th. And then another book, High Republic, Defy the Storm, has a release date of March 12th of 2024. So there's your kind of novel, adult novels, young adult novel release dates. Comics, this past Wednesday, you had Bounty Hunters 33 and Dr. Aphra 30, High Republic number 8, and Ewoks number 1, kind of a 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi kind of comic. Next week, you got Yoda number 6 and Sana Staros number 3. And then on April 26th, you got a new Darth Vader line coming out called Darth Vader Black, White, and Red. So number 1 coming out on that last week of April. Okay. Let's talk about this, Hannah. This
Yes.
New timeline. Very interested in this. So the Lucasfilm Studio showcase that happened at Star Wars Celebration, before they dove into all the reveals of the Ahsoka trailer and Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte, they released a timeline, a new timeline of eras. Not necessarily, well, they did this once before, I will say. So they did this once before. They released, I think it was roughly the time of I think it was right before episode 9 came out. They released 3 eras. It was the Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, and Age of Resistance. And those 3 eras were describing basically the prequels, the originals, and the sequel trilogy. Right? And they even came out with, and I want to cover these on Beyond the Saga, they even came out with comic series called Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, Age of Resistance. They were kind of one-offs on some certain characters around those time periods. So now, and then we got introduced to another time period, which was the High Republic. So then you had the High Republic, and then you had a long line, and then you had the 3 eras, which the 3 eras basically consisted of the Skywalker saga, right? Because it started with the Republic era, Age of Republic, and ended with the Age of Resistance.
Right.
So now they've all but eliminated a couple of those eras. In fact, they only kept 2 of them. And now we have 9 eras that are on this timeline. And I'll start with the middle one, which is basically the time of the Empire. So the time between episodes 3 and 4. And they have now called that the Reign of the Empire. So then let's go forward.
Yep.
And then you have Age of Rebellion, which is one of the ones they kept.
Yes.
So Age of Rebellion is basically the original trilogy. And then after that, you have where we are now with The Mandalorian, the New Republic era. And then now when you get to the sequel trilogy, instead of Age of Resistance, it is now called Rise of the First Order. And then beyond that, we are getting an era of the new Jedi Order. So then going backwards from the reign of the Empire, you have the prequel trilogy, which is now considered Fall of the Jedi. And then you go back a couple hundred years or whatever, 100-200 years, you have the High Republic. You go even further back, at least 1,000 years, you have the Old Republic. You could probably even go back 3,000-4,000 years because that's when the old games took place. But then you can go back apparently 25,000 years and you have Dawn of the Jedi. So those are your 9 new eras of Star Wars. And I'll offer my opinion on this, and then I'll get yours, Hannah.
Please do.
Because to be honest, this really excites me. Just as timeline does. It's crazy. Because for one, for those of you that have listened to me on this show for all these years, I am a huge continuity crazy guy. Continuity and canon. And I really appreciate and really love the idea that Disney, wanted to unify all the mediums, TV, movies, games, comics, novels. And then I love organization. Like look at my room. I'm very organized. So I love the organization of this timeline because before, and they probably will still do it. They'll probably still say this happens 50 BBY or this happens 75 80 ABY, whatever. But I think they're going to, personally, I think they're going to use that less and less because it doesn't really make sense now why A New Hope would be year 0 other than it was the first movie that we ever got in the Star Wars universe, right?
Right.
But people that live in this galaxy, the Battle of Yavin isn't year 0, right?
Right.
Because for those that obviously haven't experienced it, they don't even know that has happened yet. So this makes more sense to me because now you can just say, well, this takes place during the Old Republic, or this takes place during the New Republic, right? So, and then you can have your kind of breakdown in every era of like, this happens 10 years before this happens, or this happens 5 years before this. So I really like now, and what's crazy is that you do have your, how do you say it? Like, your bad times, like because they do mention Fall of the Jedi, Reign of the Empire, Rise of the First Order. They're highlighting, bad parts of the timeline too. So, which I thought was cool and good to include, instead of just saying like what was the government at that time, or whatever, or the group in order, because there obviously isn't any kind of, which I wonder if, well, I'll get to that, but like there's no descriptor of any Sith Empire within this. So I'm curious, I'm wondering if this would ever get expanded beyond this. So, which I think it would, I guess it could. Because like you said, like we just mentioned, there's big gaps between like Dawn of the Jedi, Old Republic. We don't really know when Old Republic canon really takes place. But anyway, really, very excited about this. And I'll go more into it. But overall, what was your thoughts when you first saw this?
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at my phone. Looking at it on my phone right now, and it is just it excites me too. I think you're right. I think it simplifies it because for people like me, I kind of generalize that in that grouping anyway versus like 55 BBY. I'm like, for what?
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry, what? And I think that'll help simplify it for everybody in general. You can just say, look, it's this, it's this, it's this. Oh, I know exactly when you're talking about. I also agree with you where I love the fact that it's not a one-sided timeline. It's a very unbiased timeline because it shows like the fall of the Jedi, the rise of the First Order. So it's unbiased, therefore it's a little more, I don't want to say it's like more trustworthy, but it shows that we're going to get both sides of the story. And we do throughout the various mediums. And we're going to see more of the other side in Acolyte. I know that when you told me they released a timeline, the first thing I looked for was, did they keep the old Republic? And they did. So I breathed a sigh of relief there. But I agree with you. There are. I would not be surprised that if we went to stories beyond, the new Jedi Order, I wouldn't be surprised if it expanded that way. If we added more in the beginning, because there is such a huge time gap. But I think setting this precedent of we're really going to go by this versus year numbers is just going to help simplify it so much.
Yes. And I also think that the reason why I believe they did this now, especially, was, obviously they were revealing movies that are going to be coming out during these new movies, right? So one of them it's going to be based on Dawn of the Jedi. One of them is going to be the new Jedi Order. And then, of course, Filoni's going to be still hanging around the New Republic. But the New Republic, like I said, wasn't an era they had before. So they had to create these eras to kind of fit these movies. So in my estimation, is the reason why they did this is there is going to be content created for each one of these eras, right?
Right.
But which one, like you just said, which one technically doesn't have anything canon in it yet?
Old Republic.
It's the Old Republic.
But they've basically, have they confirmed that they're doing a remaster or remake of Knights of the Old Republic?
It was announced. Now there's been all kinds of problems with, the development and people dropping off, and so there's no release date yet. There's nothing like it's coming out, this year or next year, and we don't know what that means. Because to me, I almost feel like they're rethinking now that, because I think, because this is completely my theory. I have no idea if this is true or not. But in the beginning, when you release the title Knights of the Old Republic remake, like you're already saying, okay, this was the story, and we're going to basically keep it the way it is. We're just going to update the graphics and, maybe some user content, some options and things like that, but essentially the same game. I was really kind of surprised by that, because I feel like if you were going to truly canonize it, that you need to make it seem like it is a new telling, or is a new way to experience the game. Right? Now you can still have the same characters and you can still have the same things, but I don't know why you almost in a sense, just you can call it you can almost still call it Knights of the Old Republic. The whole remake name part of it is just, I don't know. I hope that they're delaying it because, there were articles out that maybe the story wasn't right, or they're not, because they hired a writer to kind of write this game. And in fact, his name is, I think his name is Sam Sags, who just wrote, let me make sure I get his name right. Sam Maggs, who wrote Battle Scars that you just listened to. So he was on the game, but then left.
But the story's already so good, you don't need to change it.
Well, that's the thing, is I think they're trying to establish a canon story that makes sense for how, what if it's Revan again, obviously, because we saw the teaser trailer had Revan in it, right? So it is about Revan still. So how does because I don't think this is the only thing that's going to come out in that era, obviously.
Right.
I think they're going to make other stories, like books, possibly a movie, you know?
There's so much content there. Like, there's
Yes,
so
there
much
is.
because there's a Sith Academy.
Absolutely. So I think that's why they came up with this, obviously, is that there's content going to be coming out in each one of these. We already know High Republic's has all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Everything else is already, it has stuff. New Jedi Order will be a movie, and Dawn of Jedi will be a movie. But you're right, because I think there's a time, like, I think the Old Republic could technically represent, you know, because I believe the Knights of the Old Republic in the game that came out before took place almost 4,000 years before A New Hope. So there's still that time period that they already have canonized in the movies, where they said 1,000 years before Episode 1 was when that version of the Republic was established, like the Republic, right? Then before that, it was the Old Republic. So, and around that time is when obviously Darth Bane created the Rule of Two. So you had the Great Jedi Sith War then. So at some point, I think roughly 1,000 years or 1,500 years or whatever, there's got to be some kind of Sith era there where they're like, again, like building I mean, they're massive if they're able to contend against the Jedi at the time. So, and throughout history as the Old Republic games, mainly not the Knights of the Republic, but the game that came out called the Old Republic, that the Sith Empire actually they invade Coruscant and take over. I believe that takes place, that takes place 700-800 years or something like that after the Knights of the Republic 2, I think, or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, because a couple of the same characters are still in it. So they take over. I mean, the galaxy. I mean, the Sith Empire takes over. So it's like at some point there's an era there if they hold true to that canon or introduce that as canon and kind of stick with that somewhat rough storyline. There is a reign of the Sith, you know, that at some point before they return. So I think that's possible that they add to that.
Oh, that would be great. Like a Darth Bane movie, Sith taking over Coruscant movie. Heck yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely,
that'd be great.
Yeah. So, of these 9 eras, like which eras? Couple of them. Which eras are you? What do you lean towards? What do you want stories from?
Dawn of the Jedi and Old Republic.
Oh, really? You want to go way back? Huh?
I find that so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, is the Dawn of the Jedi the first discovery of the Force, or is it the first Jedi established? Like, what is it? So I just think that would be very cool to explore. And then also the Old Republic. It's just, I would love to see what will now be canon and what they do with it and what is no longer canon. Because, you know, there are Mandalorians and Knights of the Old Republic, both 1 and 2. So it'd be interesting to see what they're like there as well. What about you? What are you leaning towards?
It's funny because I want to say that, I mean, even though we're getting a ton of books right now in the High Republic, like I want to say the High Republic because I want to see movies around that time.
Yes.
And that's why I'm looking forward to the Acolyte. But the problem is an Acolyte will probably work because I'm assuming they're going to be fighting Sith that are kind of hidden but no one finds out about them, right? So,
right.
But I tend to think like I want an era where the Jedi are fighting Sith. So I would say then the Old Republic because that's what's happening then. Dawn of the Jedi, I think I'm interested in that, but I'm only interested in that because I do want to know the beginning. But and maybe they introduce how the dark side is involved and all this stuff.
Yes.
So that would be interesting. But to me, it's the Old Republic. And honestly, I want to see a new Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see all new Jedi. I want to see all new threats to the galaxy and how that they deal with it. So, and I guess, you know what, I guess what's interesting is to know, because we have this era called the New Republic, which we're in now. And then, you know, the First Order kind of takes over.
Right.
I mean, they destroy the government, basically. They destroy Hosnian Prime that has all the New Republic officials on it. But once after Rise of Skywalker ends, you know, does the New Republic just stay the New Republic, or is there actually another shift? Because you got to think about it. At that point, who's your leaders?
Yeah. They're all dead.
They're all dead. I mean, unless you had a couple of senators or government officials that weren't on Hosnian for some reason, which I guess you very could well. You could have had some senators that were out, and then one steps up. But I'm actually curious about that. Like, who is the governmental leader during the new Jedi Order? Because obviously it's not Leia. Obviously, Mon Mothma's been dead for a while. You know, we didn't really get into who the politicians were in the sequel trilogy because, again, they were all dead.
Yeah, it's true.
So does Poe get into politics? I doubt it.
No.
You know? Yeah, I don't think so either.
No. Chewie,
yeah.
Chewie's the new.
I mean, who? Yeah, I am curious about the state of the government, because it's not like the rebellion, because the Senate was just disbanded like 4 years before Return of the Jedi, and no one was killed. They just kind of retired the Senate. So all those officials like Mon Mothma were there when the Empire fell. But now you don't have any of that after the Rise of Skywalker, and it's like, who do you listen to?
It's Grogu.
I mean, it's crazy to think. I'm really, my mind is like racing about the state of the galaxy at that point. And then, you know, Kathleen Kennedy was interviewed saying that in the new Jedi Order movie, she used the word, the Jedi are in disarray, and Rey is trying to, you know, build it and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I guess that's considered disarray, trying to build a new Jedi Academy and all this stuff. But like,
it's not disarray.
But you got to talk about the government's in disarray. I mean, there's no government. I mean, so what makes it? I don't know. It's because you think about it too. Like, there's no navy and army, right? Because it was all citizen ships that destroyed the fleet of the. So it's like you don't even have soldiers, or you don't even have like Star Destroyers, or you don't have any of that stuff. I mean, the Resistance was makeshift ships also, right? Built of like old X-Wings and Y-Wings and stuff like that. So I don't hear anybody talking about that or asking about that.
That would be interesting to see what's happening government-wise. Because
how are they controlling the galaxy?
It's gone.
It's gone.
That's a dangerous.
You have to. I mean, Hosnian Prime's gone, so you have to reestablish everything on Coruscant, I believe.
Oh, jeez.
So you do have a Senate there. The building, I'm assuming, is still there. So you just have to, like, all of a sudden just start electing new leaders, and it's crazy. That would take a while to get back together, I think. But anyway.
No, that might be my third. From that perspective, from the government perspective, because how do you bounce back from that?
Right. So we'll see. I don't know. I just thought that it was an interesting reveal, and really, really hopeful for these stories that are during some of these eras.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot of stories too.
That is.
It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it.
I know. Can't wait. Interested on what other people are thinking. So please leave those comments about that.
Please do.
So let's answer a couple here.
All right.
So we did have a couple. We did have a couple Facebook comments here. The questions. One was from Froda, who listens and feedbacks a lot on the Mandalore podcast. But he listened to our last episode where we were talking about, I think we were talking about the new Jedi Order and the movie and about adapting,
Yeah.
things from that. Legends, yes. But he mentions, I've got one question for you guys. You talked about the twins that you'd like to learn more about. Who is that, and in what book can I read about them? Now, I'll admit, and I don't know fully your knowledge of it. I haven't read any of the old New Jedi Order books.
I have.
You have? Okay. So I just kind of skimmed the storylines. Like I know who Jaina and Jason are. I know that one of them turns to the dark side. I know that Luke and Mara have a son, Ben Skywalker. And actually, I think Jaina and Jason, they have another son, don't they?
Yep, they have another son, Anakin.
Anakin, that's right. They have Anakin Solo. So, so the New Jedi Order is roughly about Luke, Leia, Han, and then, of course, the Solo kids and Ben Skywalker. So that's why it was interesting to get Ben Solo in the sequel, right?
Yes.
So, but anyway, you could probably answer this better than I can.
Yep. So basically, there's actually a book called The New Jedi Order. If you go online and Google it, you can read from that book on. I don't know where you could find those books anymore. I've tried to find them. I'm sure you could probably find them on Amazon. Their story is crazy.
They're probably Kindle versions of them too.
Probably Kindle,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But their story is absolutely crazy. Jason and Jaina. So you know how in the sequels they talk about the dyad in the Force? Technically, that's what Jason and Jaina had. They just never called it that. They just were like, oh, we have a special connection. Like one of them gets into a horrific plane crash and the other is all of a sudden on the ground writhing in pain because they can feel each other's pain, which is why when Jason turns to the dark side, it's such an interesting dynamic between the two of them because you have Jaina who's still on the light side and Jason goes dark. Jason, I won't give away too much, but it's a very slow descent to the dark side for Jason. And ultimately, Jaina has to face Jason in the end. So that's the story of the twins. There's a lot more that goes on in there.
Totally.
That feeds into that fall into the dark side. But if you ever want to read Legends, I highly recommend that you read The New Jedi Order on. That's actually all the books that I've read. And you get to learn about the Yuzon Vong, which we think inspired the creation of the Nihil in the New Republic, because there are a lot of similarities between the two. The Yuzon Vong are such a fascinating alien race.
Yes.
So highly recommend that read. It's a great story.
Yeah, so the New Jedi Order, it was a series of books.
Yeah, it the whole thing, and I think the first book is actually called The New Jedi Order.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But the New Jedi Order is just like, it's this huge group, which takes place 40 years? No, not 40. 20 years. I think it takes place 20 years after the events of Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Because at that point, Jason and Jaina are grown up. Because I think during the whole original 789, where Thrawn was the antagonist and the main villain, I think that's when Leia was pregnant with the twins, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But I could be incorrect about that information.
Yeah, I'm looking at some Yusen Vong War took place between 25 and 29 years ABY. And then you had 30 ABY was the Swarm War, which I don't know what that is.
I think that had to deal with the Yusen Vong, if I remember correctly.
So, but it looks like there were 19 books.
Yep. There were a lot.
That was a lot.
Great read.
Yes.
Great read.
And of course, like we said too, like Mara Jade is in these books. Yeah.
Sith assassin gone after Luke, and they fall in
Yeah.
love.
I don't think we'll ever get a Mara Jade, to be honest. Not that way, in a way.
That disappoints me so much. It really does.
So there you go, Frodo. New Jedi Order books. Go get those.
Yes.
Got a comment from Zach on Facebook saying, hate to say it. This is based on our last conversation about, I think you mentioned about them maybe changing.
Yeah, adding Star Wars.
Japan, right? Tokyo, Disneyland, Tokyo. Hate to say it, but don't think they'll add anything to Disneyland or Disney Sea for Celebration 25, just because they added Beauty and the Beast and Hero 8 attractions this year and a new Toy Story hotel. So maybe just keeping up with or changing Star Tours that's already in the park. I don't know. I mean, they got 2 years.
They do.
If they have something planned, they could do something, but I mean, because, again, we just heard Bob Iger come out and say that they're spending $19 billion on park renovations on the parks. Now, I don't know if that meant it was just Disney World or it was like across all the parks.
So there are some people speculating that it means they're adding an additional park to Disney World. That's what some people are thinking.
Wow.
Especially in reaction to Universal's new land that they're building, in addition to the Mario world, in addition to because are they building something in Texas too? Universal?
I don't know. I don't know much about Universal, what Universal's doing.
But the rumor, and once again, it's a rumor, don't know if it's true or not, but the rumor is they're actually building a 5th Disney park. And I've only seen that on social media, and that's just what people on social media are predicting. Don't know if it's true or not. I just really want to emphasize that. But that's what I've been reading on social media.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense, because if you now we do know too that I think from the last D23 they are expanding Magic Kingdom.
Yes.
There's like a villain section that they proposed. They're talking about renovating Dino Land and Animal Kingdom. But if you do look at it, what's crazy is a lot of people maybe a lot of people know this or not, but like I look at the satellite images around the parks, like there's not, like Hollywood and Epcot, you really can't expand those anymore.
No, you can't.
Yeah, they're kind of up against the back, the back lots and things like that of those places. Now, Magic Kingdom has got a lot of land still.
You've got plenty of space there.
Yeah, you could expand that. Animal Kingdom's got a lot of land that you could if you wanted to, I guess, because like the Safari Trek like takes up a lot of like expansion to the north there. But so you could do, but another park, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I don't know what, obviously they'd come up with something good to call it, but
I just wonder if they have to be careful, because I know one thing, and once again, I don't know if this is true or not, but I read this somewhere that Walt wanted to make sure that you felt separated from the outside world in Disney.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like you can't
and you
see.
do.
And you do.
And you do. Yeah,
you totally do. So I don't know what it would look like if they were going to do that, but maybe that amount is just into the expansions that they're doing. But if so, I feel like you have some leftover money to do something else.
Yeah, sure. Because it probably doesn't include, I'm assuming that doesn't include any of the stuff that are already been doing updating Epcot.
Right.
Like that's money already spent. So, one thing they're lacking, and of course this is a Star Wars show, but I'll mention it. One thing they're lacking is Avengers.
Yeah,
and
so
Marvel.
Maybe that's what they're doing, is that they're going to finally get the Avengers campus.
Yeah, but they need the rights, because the reason why they don't have it yet is they don't have the rights to the parks. It's funny how, because I read up on this when we were going out to LA or Anaheim for Disneyland, and we went to Avengers Campus, and I'm thinking, like, why don't they have this? Like, you know what? Like, the perfect place would be Hollywood, where Rock and Roller Coaster is. Like, convert that to Avengers Campus.
Mm-hmm.
But I did some research while I was there, and I was looking, and I actually talked to a couple people, and they were like, well, the reason why I can't put this in Florida is because it was weird how they signed the rights was that they can only do Avengers stuff in parks west of the Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do it east of the Mississippi, which is the weirdest thing. Why they drew that line, but technically they can't. Yeah, technically they can't do anything Avengers or Marvel related in Florida. Now, Guardians was not part of that deal, so that's why they're able to do Guardians, the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. But anything to do with the original Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, and Hulk still belongs to Universal right now, but Black Widow, whatever, they can't do anything, which is crazy to me.
That's crazy, but it makes
sense. That was a huge draw.
Yeah, because I think it's in Hong Kong. If I remember correctly, it's Hong Kong. They actually have like an escape room Avengers attraction where you go through and you like help Thor with something. You sort of help Black Widow with something. You help Star-Lord with something. You help nice. Doctor Strange with something. Like it's interesting.
Yeah, I think eventually they're going to have to just figure it out and pay whatever they need to get the park rights, because that's so much money they're losing out, I feel like.
Yeah. Or not.
Kids coming there.
It could be forcing people to go to Anaheim.
I guess, but not everybody can travel out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like people in Florida that would go take their kids just to meet Captain America or, meet Tony Stark. I don't know. It's like an Avenger. My girls loved Avengers Campus out there, and they technically only had two rides, the Web Slingers thing, and then they had the Guardians converted Tower of Terror that converted to Guardians. So really, but they had a ton of like shows, like Doctor Strange had a show going on. They had a show like with Black Panther and Black Widow, defending the campus. I mean, it's really neat stuff, and it's perfect. You would change Rock and Roller Coaster to something Avengers, and because you can like even the signs, like you can make it be during the first movie, like during the New York invasion. I mean, right. That would be fantastic. And then you have like, you set up a campus, anyway. If I worked for Disney parks, that's what I would do. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, there is time, but you could be right. So then it'd be interesting to find out eventually why they are in Japan.
Chose Japan. Yep. Okay. Back on a couple of shows ago, our 10-year anniversary show, because I didn't read these comments on our last episode. Thrawn Addict said, congrats on 10 years. Been listening since 2017. I remember listening to all the theories for The Last Jedi, but I did go back to your very early episodes, which were so good, listening to general Star Wars discussions and theories back then. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate all the work you do and the content you put out. I enjoy every episode and your opinions. And you by far the best Star Wars podcast channel out there. Thanks, man. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Here is to hopefully another awesome 10 years for both of you and Hannah, and great Star Wars content. Thank you again. May the Force be with you. Yes, thank you so much. You are by far a great contributor to the show.
Thank you.
Next comment from Thrawn Addict as well. Bad Batch finale episodes were 10 for 10 for me. Great storytelling, action, and drama. Love seeing more Tarkin and even a cameo from Krennic, which surprised me. Was shocked by Tech's death. Did not see that coming and really thought it would have ended with Crosshair sacrificing himself for the Bad Batch. But liked that they left it on a cliffhanger ending, and we can look forward to another season. I wouldn't mind if season 3 was perhaps a shorter season, focusing more on important episodes and having less filler. Even if you shortened it to 10 episodes, that would be perfect.
Yes.
Totally agree.
Yes. Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. And then he mentions the Mandalorian. The pirate episode was a lot of fun. Mandalorian saving the town from pirates really reminded me of a classic Western. All the action scenes were great and well done. It was awesome to see the armor wreck some pirates with her hammers. The outcome became the armor and Bo-Katan. Between the armor and Bo-Katan was interesting. Did feel a bit tense because I think either the armor was going to betray her because she might have seen Bo as a threat, or she was also going to remove her helmet, revealing to be someone she might know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. So
There's something there. There's definitely something there.
There's something. So maybe the armor is a spy.
Can't not mention seeing Zeb. I absolutely love Rebels, so was excited when I realized it was actually him. Also, you can see Dave Filoni in the background rocking his cowboy hat, which was cool. I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that. I haven't seen it yet, but I did hear about that. Feel like this season is finding its footing a bit more now and going in a direction. So excited to see what is going to be in the next 3 episodes. I got his comments on the next episode here too, a second. But we also got a comment on, We also got a comment on our Beyond the Saga, one of our older shows.
Oh.
It was the first, when we covered the first issue of the Star Wars series.
Okay.
So a Katie Robinson commented and said, I just started reading the comics for the first time, and when I watch the shows, I always like to watch recaps and reviews because it helps me think about and remember what happened and better see the big picture of the story. I was afraid there wouldn't be anything out there like that for the comics, but then I found you all. I know it's old now, but thank you for doing this. It's exactly what I was looking for. And then she replied to herself and said, I'm sure this has come up later, but I can borrow them digitally for free from my library with no wait, and I'm reading them on my iPad. It's free and easy and wouldn't be a feasible medium for me to dive into otherwise.
Aww.
So I think she mentioned, I guess, how she can get the comics, right? She can get, which is free from my library. I didn't know you can get them free from your library.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah. Because I've been paying for all those back there.
Well, so glad to hear that we could be there for you in that way.
Yes, thank you, Kay. We have a lot of comics we've been covering, and we're going to keep covering them. So
yes,
keep coming back, and we'll mention that comment when we do our next Beyond the Saga as well. So she can, because she might not be watching this show, she might just be watching Beyond the Saga. So we will talk to you on there, Katie.
Yep.
Thrawn on our last episode comes back and says, I know a lot of people didn't like the latest episode of Mandalorian, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the procedural buddy cop aspect, and I know people criticize the weirdness of the episode, but if you watch some episodes of Clone Wars, there are weird things in Star Wars sometimes, especially with some planets and civilizations. Absolutely. Embrace the strangeness of Star Wars. Not everything has to be gritty and realistic. I did think the casting was a bit odd and thought the Darksaber bit at the end was a tad weak and convenient, but I can live with it. I did love watching a video about if Star Wars followed the law of Darksaber, saying that if it had to be won in combat, then technically Luke Skywalker would be the owner of the Darksaber. Because Sidious, and I did see this video that he's talking about. Sidious beat Maul in the Clone Wars, who had the Darksaber at the time. And then Vader defeats Sidious in Return of the Jedi, and technically Luke had defeated Vader before he died. So would not Luke have the Darksaber then?
Did
Now,
they
obviously,
Elder Wand the whole thing.
yeah. Now, Luke obviously probably doesn't even. I don't know if Luke even knows about the Darksaber.
I don't think it does.
Yeah. So, and of course, when Sidious. I mean, technically, I think he's right.
I think technically, yeah.
But I don't think anybody knows that Sidious defeated Maul, for one, back then.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Because when Sabine finds it on Dathomir,
yeah.
I don't think anybody knows how it got there and why it got there.
Right.
But that's an interesting theory. Interesting way to look at it.
Okay.
But then he mentions that he was at Star Wars Celebration. So Star Wars Celebration was so much fun.
Oh.
Because Thrawn's, I think, over in London. Went on to Saturday with my son, and he loved it. Went to the Ahsoka panel and had photo ops with some of the actors, as well as spending a lot of money on toys and other collectibles. So glad I got to go and experience it. Nothing like it. The Ahsoka trailer was fantastic, and I'm so excited. Will be interesting to see how they do it for fans who has neither watched who has not watched Rebels, because I can imagine it could be confusing not knowing the history of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Movie news wise, I was slightly underwhelmed. Happy to see any new Star Wars films, but I'm with Hannah. Give me Old Republic.
Yes.
Was good to see Daisy Ridley back, though. I think we underestimate how many fans there are of the character and the sequel films.
No, that's a good point. That's an excellent point.
I think there's more fans. I think there's definitely more fans of Rey Skywalker than the sequel trilogy in the whole.
Yes, I think that is a fair statement.
Yeah. Because I'm a fan. I'm actually a fan of Rey. I'm not a huge fan of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I think on a previous episode we talked about how I'm sort of a fan of Rey, but I feel like I don't know. As a woman, I'm like,
yeah.
But
no,
anyway.
Rey's story is, I can appreciate it. I get it. But the whole sequel trilogy as a group could have been a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. It could have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for dropping those lines in, comments and questions. Appreciate that. That will do it for this episode of Inside the Force. Next week, we will cover the finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian. And then I think from there, Hannah, we got to get ready for May the 4th. Star Wars Day is just a couple weeks away.
And Visions.
And Star Wars Visions will be coming out. That's right. Since we just had Celebration, there's probably not going to be any kind of news or anything dropping then. Maybe they could drop a look at Skeleton Crew, maybe,
Or Acolyte.
Yeah. Also, remember a few days before that, you've got new Jedi Order.
Yes.
Survivor coming out. So I'll be playing that.
Have fun.
I just started Battle Scars, the book.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to try to get through that before the game comes out.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do that. And we've got some Beyond the Sagas we'll get on, because I do want to get I did finish Princess and the Scoundrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. And we'll do some comics and things like that. In fact, I think, Hannah, I was going to tell you, I think the next one, which I've been meaning to do, but now is the right time because the new game's coming out. There is a Jedi Fallen Order comic.
Perfect.
That is like a prequel to the first game.
Oh.
So yeah,
That'll be interesting.
So we can talk about that and kind of put that out there around that time. So anyway, more stuff to come, everybody. We'll get some more Beyond the Sagas, some council sessions, and all that stuff going on. For all those shows, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com at Inside the Force, and see those shows there. And of course, like I said, thank you to our patrons. If you want to support the show with Patreon, patreon.com/Inside the Force. You can go there, check out our tiers, get some extra content there. And then, of course, we're on all the podcast feeds every week right here on Inside the Force. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Hannah, as always.
Thank you so much, Dave, as always.
Yeah, great episode, great talk. Yes. We will see you next week. Go watch The Mandalorian and have a great rest of the week. Take care, everybody. May the Force be with you.